Emerit Hashem Shapira. Okay, the Chofetz Chaim is coming to explain if lending money to a fellow Jew is a positive commandment. What do people treat it as something of non-importance? It's a positive commandment. You put on tefillin, it's a positive commandment. Taking the 4 species on Sukkot is a positive commandment. When it comes to these, people are meticulously careful to make sure they do it right. When it comes to a loan, somehow they evade it. They try to somehow deflect it, to bypass it. Why? And he gives examples. Somebody comes to you and says, by the way, could you give me a loan? Says, I got to check with my accountant. I don't have my checkbook. Got to talk to my wife. I'm not sure if we have any reserves. I may need the money for some kind of investment. Person come up with 25 excuses. Or you'll find him in the street. He says, if you would have caught me before I left my house, I would have been able to check. Get back to me in a week. In a week, the man's going to be dispossessed. He's going to be on the street. But get back to me in a week. That's the way it is. Why? So he's trying to explain why people are this way. He says, if people would appreciate and understand that it's truly an obligation, and if you can and you don't, that there's liability to the one who does not offer it, maybe that would motivate the person to do the right thing, to lend the money. We're not saying to give money as an irresponsible person, as a fool. You have a right to ask for a note. You have a right to ask for collateral. You're right to do all those things, because otherwise you're being not responsible to yourself. But even if the man is willing to give all that, you still come up with many reasons, or even though you don't say them, but what passes through a person's mind is, I've had a bad experience in the past, which is very often what happens. I made the mistake twice. I'm not going to make it the third time. Although you don't verbally tell the borrower or the one wants to borrow, that's the reason. Because you have no negative record with him. It's not he's defaulted in the past. But nevertheless, you frame them all within the same frame. He cites a midrash, this midrash in Rus, on Megillus Rus, that greater is the favor that the poor man does with the rich man than the rich man does with the poor man. When the poor man comes and asks the rich man to help him financially, and he does him that favor, the rich man is a greater beneficiary than the poor man for 2 reasons. Firstly, the poor man, when he receives the money, he's not doing a mitzvah. But the poor man, when he asks the rich man to give him money, or the person of means to give him the money, he's creating a setting that the man of means is able to do a mitzvah. What is the value of a mitzvah? Besides doing the favor, but in terms of the innate spiritual value of mitzvah, cannot be quantified. So in a certain way, not a certain way, in every way, the rich man giving the money is a greater beneficiary of his action than the poor man receiving the physical material means to purchase whatever he's going to purchase. That's firstly. Secondly, he's doing a greater favor because since he's acting as a responsible treasurer for God to disperse it as he's supposed to disperse it, God says there's more to give. Just come to me, I'll put more in the account, you'll be able to write more checks for charity. But if the person withholds it and doesn't act as that responsible disperser, God says, something, you don't make the grade. I'm withdrawing the money from you. And therefore, as a result of that, the man himself may be in a impoverished state because he didn't act responsibly within the area that he was supposed to be responsible. I'll tell you an interesting story. Many years ago, going back many years ago, there was a certain person, today's man, upper 60s. He's an observant man. And he has today a lot of money, had a lot of money then. And a great rabbi, a holy rabbi, had asked him to give him $1 million, put it into account, to create outreach kollels out-of-town communities. If you have 10 young men learning, moving to a community, and they will be the hub of Torah and doing outreach, it can do a tremendous service for that community. Studying with people, creating a certain spirit, and he was agreeable to do it. So he put $1 million in the bank, and it was available for a fund to fund this kind of activity. And he said, if you need more, I'll put more in the bank, more money. At that time, he must have been then in his 40s, this person. So then they needed somebody to oversee the fund. So I remember, it was a winter afternoon day, and this great rabbi, who's the mashgiach of the Lakewood Yeshiva, then he's no longer alive for many years, and he helped Rav Aaron Kotler, Zecher Tzaddik Levracha, found the Lakewood Yeshiva. They started it together many years ago, after the war, and his name was Rav Nosson Fachtvogel, Zecher Tzaddik Levracha. That was his name. Originally was born in Montreal in either the very beginning of the 20th century or the end of the 19th century. And I knew he was going to come. He wanted to ask me personally. He came with a few people to my house and explained to me what they want to do, and if I'm agreeable to oversee the fund. And I would be responsible for the disbursements. Whenever they need, okay. So I said, it's my privilege to do such a thing. Happy to do it. Not because I want to have the power to be in control of $1 million, had nothing to do with this. So what happened was, but the person who put the money in this account wanted to meet me. So we were going to meet. He was an observant man, about my age at the time, maybe a year or two younger. It happened to be this person came from Atlanta, Georgia, and he had studied in Baltimore, where I studied. He's younger than I am. I was quite a few years ahead of him, not only because of age, because I was just ahead of him. And we meet, we talk, and he says to me, I'm very happy you're taking on this responsibility. I have full trust in you, and I know you're capable. And if you need more, I'll put more in the account. And the words he said was, as long as God's smiling on me, I will smile on you. Meaning he's happy to do it. Okay. And he's a very busy person, this person. His office was in the, I think it was called Carnegie Towers. Same block as Carnegie Hall. And I met him in his office. Okay. I had his personal number. And I had to go through a secretary. First week into the responsibility, I have to speak to him. I call, can't get through to him. I speak to a secretary, said, look, this is Rabbi Kalatsky calling. You have to speak to him regarding what we had spoken about. I call a week, 2 weeks, can't get through. So I called the secretary, and I said to the secretary, I want to tell you something. If he doesn't return the call now, let him not call me anymore. That's what I said. And I said to him, so he calls me back. I said, look, I want to explain you something. You put $1 million in the account. I want you to understand, I'm doing you a favor. You're not doing me a favor. I'm not getting paid for this. You have the merit to be able to support this project of Kiruv. I'm happy to facilitate it. But if you're giving me a problem that I can't talk to you when I have to speak to you, we're going nowhere. You can take your money back. I'm not interested. That's what I told him. So he says, no, my line will always be open. From now on, the moment you call, I'll take your call. Just telling you the background on it. So we start the project, and the person who was on grounds, boots on the ground, who was supposed to deal with the communities to set up the kollel, he was dragging his feet. He himself really wasn't on par to be able to create the relationships to be able to launch this program. It means that he was drawing a salary, there were expenses, and the $1 million was being depleted for expenses. puts that kind of money, he wants to see some return on his money. What progress? Where's the progress? And he wasn't happy. It went for 6 months. Maybe we had spent $200,000 and it wasn't any money in my pocket. And the man says, you know something? I'm taking back the money. Taking it back. I gave you money. You're supposed to use it responsibly. I was more than happy. And he said, I even give you more. But if you're not going to use it as I gave it, to have the return on what it's meant to be, I'm taking the money back. That's the story. Okay? So let's shift here. God gives a person money. He has wealth, and he's supposed to give 10%, 20% to charity. And a loan, it's not you giving it away. So if you're able to give the loan, even if it's beyond your 20% amount, if you can give the loan and your money's not in jeopardy, you should give it. You don't give the loan. So the one who put up the money says to the one who's responsible to distribute it, you know something, you're not acting responsibly. I'm taking it back. And if Hashem says I'm taking it back, you don't want to be at the end of that stick. So therefore, the poor man is doing the rich man a favor. Because the rich man, what's his return? It's eternity. Plus, God's going to give you more to have a greater stake in eternity, besides the other blessings. The poor man, lending him a few dollars, help him out a little bit, make ends meet. But if the rich man doesn't come across and doesn't act responsibly to do the distribution as he should, so the benefactor, the funder says, I'm taking my money back. You're not the guy, so to say. And if you're not the person, it comes to an end. You're not going to be the distributor of what? Of those funds. So if person would only understand, if you're in the driver's seat, you don't want to be put in the back seat. You don't want to be put in the boot. You know, in England, they call the trunk the boot. You don't want to get in the boot. You don't want there, right? Or in Israel, they call it the bagage. You don't want to be put in the bagage, right? No, man. The bagage, you don't want to be there. So only if a person would understand, he would act differently. So this is another reason why, because a person doesn't understand the value of what he does and the significance, therefore he somehow evades it. Because he said, if it's an investment, financial investment, he'll find his checkbook. He'll make the phone call. He'll go back to his office. Somehow he'll accommodate the person. And what's the guarantee? It's definitely a profit. There's no guarantees. Probably the likelihood of not making, well, there's a 10% chance, 20% it's worth it. I'm willing to take the risk. The loan is no risk. He's giving you a collateral plus a guarantor on top of the collateral. So what's the risk? But somehow the evil inclination gets in the person's brain and he immediately creates a little bit of dementia and you don't process it properly. That's what happens. Okay, that's one thing. Then he says another thing. And people, unfortunately, many years ago, you know, person has a rich relative and a person comes for a loan to another party. And person says, did you ask your uncle for the loan? You ask your cousin? You have a rich cousin. What are you coming to me? Very often people say that. You come from a wealthy family. Why don't they lend you the money? What are you coming to me? Is that a legitimate response? It's not a legitimate response. Because what happens, he says, I went to them and they're not able to lend me. They say, you know, if they can't lend you, why should I lend you? If they're not willing to put themselves out for you, why should I put myself out for you? Even though the person may not verbalize those words, but the way a person thinks, that goes through a person's mind. And very often, it's enough to convince him, I'm not giving it. They want their family member to be denied. Let them deal with it. I don't have to deal with it. Is that a legitimate position to take? No. You go and offer an opportunity to your brother. He turns it down. And then a stranger is offered the opportunity. And it's a bona fide opportunity. Definitely a return. Unquestioned, with a guaranteed return. You say, did you offer it to your brother? You say, yes, he wasn't interested. Well, if he's not interested, I'm not interested. What do you mean not interested? Are you a fool? He's not interested in making the profit. That's his decision. I mean, you don't want to be in a better position to put your money where you're gonna have a phenomenal return. So he shows immediately. It's all on like an emotional level. Because a person really focus on the innateness of the act, that the act itself is special, you'd be more than happy to accommodate the person's need. You know, it's interesting. The Gemara tells us that if you're traveling on the road and you come across a person where his animal is faltering under its load, so there's a positive commandment to help him to right the load, so the animal should collapse under the load. Okay? What happens if you come across a person, the animal collapsed, and you have to get the animal up and reload it? It's more difficult. That's also a mitzvah. Either to prevent it from collapsing. What about if the one where you're going to right the load before it collapses? Because the Gemara says, Talmud says, that if the animal's standing, you need one person just to right the load. Once it falls to the ground, you have to have three people to lift up the animal, because you have to lift the animal off the ground and plus the load on it. So what if I have a situation like this? An animal is on the road, collapsed with its cargo. Another animal is standing, but the animal that's standing, that the load has to be righted, the Torah uses the term, kira, but the man's your enemy. You don't like the guy. He's not on your good guys list. So which one should you attend first? The one, your enemy's load, where you're just going to right the load, which is easier, or help the man that his animal is on the ground and suffering because it's under the load, and unload the animal on the road. Which one should you do? So you would say, logically, you should attend to the one where the animal collapsed. First, there's financial damage. The animal is going to be hurt. The animal's in pain. Plus, he has a much more difficult task to get that animal up. But yet, the Torah says, the animal that's standing, to ride its load, although physically it's easier, because when you don't like a guy and you go against the grain and do the right thing, God values that more than going and putting yourself out to take the financial issue into account and the pain of the animal into account. For you to be challenged and meet the challenge, and although you don't like him, and despite you not liking him, you're doing the right thing, in God's eyes, that has greater value. So, it's not so easy to do a mitzvah. God's going to create, you have 25 reasons why not to. He has a rich uncle. He has a rich brother. Why don't you go to them? Well, I did. Well, even if they did, if they're not willing to help, why should I help you? I'm not even related to you. I barely know you. But the borrower says, but I'm good for the money because I have the guarantor, I have the collateral. But it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make a difference. So God creates the greater challenge that you shouldn't want to do the mitzvah. So now when you do the mitzvah has greater value. Greater value. Many years ago, there was a person who was a Sephardic Jew, came to Yad Avram, and he had a graduate degree from NYU. He had maybe he had an MBA, and somewhere he couldn't get a job. So he came to me and he says, would you help me try to get a job? I'll give you my resume, show it around. Some people write entrance letters to Harvard. Would I show his resume? Maybe somebody would be interested, and through my connection, he'd get a position. At that time, this person, there was a woman who used to come to lectures, not an observant woman, and she came from Germany, Jewish woman. I mean, young, she was maybe 23 years old, came from a very wealthy family. And he was involved with her, physically involved with her. I'm not saying, they were on a wrestling team together. I don't mean that kind of physically involved. Okay. And so I said to him, by the way, I heard that you have this intimate relationship with this woman. Don't you realize it's not appropriate? So he says, I know, but this, that, it may turn into something. I may marry her. I said, okay. So I said, maybe the reason why God is not allowing you to find a job is because you're not behaving properly. That's why you can't find a job. So even if I'll give your resume around, if God doesn't want you to find a job, you're not having a position. So he said to me, but all my friends are doing it, and they have positions. They're succeeding financially. So why is God picking on me? That's what he said to me. I said, let me ask you a question. The Torah says that God will discipline you the way a person disciplines a child. A father disciplines a child. Who does he discipline? His own child. If another person's child misbehaves, he doesn't discipline the other person's child. So Rechaim HaKadosh asks, why? The son comes to the father. Why are you raining it on me? Why aren't you raining it on my friend? He's doing the same thing as I'm doing. So the father says to the son, he goes, you're my child. He's not my child. And my concern for you is greater than my concern for him. Therefore, because God says, you're my children, he's expecting another level of behavior from us. He's setting us to a different standard than the nations of the world. So therefore, he reigns in on us differently. He reigns in the nations of the world. Because a parent loves a child. If you love, you go sometimes even you go and you deny the child certain basic amenities because you want him to what? To come in touch with reality and understand what appropriate behavior is. That's kasher yeser ish yisbo ken Hashem lokech misrak. As God, the father disciplines a child, even though it's painful, that's where God is going to discipline you. Only because it's a father-son relationship. So I said to the person, I said, what do you think God, these are the words I used, what do you think God is slapping you around? He's slapping you around because he loves you. Because he wants you to behave properly, then you'll get the job. The other people, he threw them to the dogs. Misbehave, you have the job. But for some reason, God has a special interest in you because he sees you differently. And therefore, he's making it more difficult. And maybe through this difficulty, you come to the realization that your behavior is not appropriate. And you separate from this woman and abide by Jewish law the way you should live your life. And then maybe you'll find a job. That's the story with him. So God creates challenges for us. He has a rich father, a rich uncle, a rich brother. Why don't you go to him to borrow the money? He comes to me, I'm a stranger. I said, what should I lend him? If his own family doesn't lend him, evidently maybe he's not a credible borrower. But the man has guarantors, his collateral. So that's not a basis. But still, they should. And if they don't, why should I? The question is, what does one thing have to do with another? If he's truly in need of the money, and he's good for the money, and the Torah says you must lend, why shouldn't you lend? It's not so simple. But that's the challenge. Only because the mitzvah is so special and valuable, therefore the challenge is more difficult. That's the reality in life. Chaim Voloshin writes in Nefesh Chaim, you ever see something? A person has a study partner, they study every night. They study the first 5 minutes, he's dozing off. Dozing off. You know, his Chavrusa says to him, why are you so tired? He said, I had a very long day. Okay? All of a sudden, he says, I'm so exhausted, I can't continue. All of a sudden, he gets a call from a friend, which he hasn't seen in a while. Would you like to go meet? We're going out to a restaurant. All of a sudden, a new surge of adrenaline. He has all the energy in the world. He's out the door. What happened? A moment ago when you were studying, you couldn't keep your eyes open. You're totally incoherent. Now you're beyond coherent, right? You could do actually somersaults out the door into the restaurant, right? You could get on the comedy floor and do a comedy jig up there for the people, and they'll even pay you for it. For that, you got energy. And he says that is the evil inclination. When it comes to do something special, you're lethargic, you're exhausted, you can't keep your eyes open. Only because studying Torah is the ultimate. Therefore, the Sandman puts sand on your eyes. Can't keep your eyes open. When it comes to other things, he gives you all the energy in the world. Same thing. Whenever you want to do a mitzvah and you're confronted with difficulties, that's only an indication of the value of that mitzvah, especially for you. Because if it wouldn't be that important, you're not going to have all these impediments why you shouldn't be able to do the mitzvah. So since lending money to your fellow, it's such an integral mitzvah to help your fellow, therefore you're going to have 1,000 reasons why you shouldn't do it. And because of that, that's exactly why you should do it. Because that only confirms the value of the mitzvah, what the mitzvah is.